and opening an informational meeting on LC 237, the Oregon Jobs Act, which I believe is sponsored by Senator Sollman. We have two different panels for this one. We're going to bring up the first panel, which I believe that everybody was here, would be Senator Sollman, Kevin Levitt with Confluence Strategies, and Mayor Beach Pace for the city of Hillsborough.
Keith is virtual.
And it looks like Mr. Levitt may be virtual. So I will defer to the good senator in the order that she would like to present.
Perfect.
Good morning.
Good.
Glad you made it. Traffic kind of heavy out there today.
A little bit. So thank you for this opportunity. Good morning, Chair Meek, Vice Chair Drazen, and members of the committee. For the record, I'm Janine Sollman. I am the state senator for Senate District 15, and that includes areas of Forest Grove, Cornelius, Hillsborough, and the Rock Creek area of Western Washington County. We are Oregon's CHIPS Culture and Commerce District. I am here today to provide a high-level overview of the Oregon Jobs Act, which stands for Jobs, Opportunity, and Build Ready Site Act, and to frame why this proposal is before you now. At its core, the Jobs Act is about Oregon workers and families. Across our state, people are feeling real economic pressure, from rising costs and affordability to uncertainty about their jobs. Oregon has not been keeping pace with other states that are actively competing for investment and talent. When job-creating projects are delayed or lost, it is working families who feel the impact first, and then the state loses the revenue needed to support schools and infrastructure and essential public services. The challenge we face is not a lack of vision. Oregon has spent years studying its economic competitiveness, particularly in advanced manufacturing. Multiple task force, including a 2-year semiconductor competitiveness task force and the Clean Tech Task Force, both reached consistent conclusions. Oregon needs build-ready industrial land, competitive incentives, and more predictable permitting if we want to retain and grow high-wage jobs that provide generational wealth to Oregon families. The Jobs Act is designed to move from planning to implementation. First, it unlocks a specific and previously vetted industrial site in North Hillsborough that has already gone through extensive planning and review. I want to be clear on this. No standalone data centers will be permitted on this land. Second, the bill modernizes existing incentive tools such as R&D tax credits and enterprise zones to ensure Oregon remains competitive and that incentives are tied directly to job creation and capital investment. I also just want to make a comment to say that Oregon has been globally competitive for years. The foundation has been there. We have been, when people talk about semiconductor and advanced manufacturing, they talk about South Korea, they talk about Taiwan, and they talk about Oregon. But we are in a different kind of world right now where our competitiveness is now not just on the global market, we're actually competing against Boise, Idaho, and North Carolina, and Arizona. So we need to make sure that we have our tools that we have in place will align and keep us on that, being able to retain and be competitive on this for industrial sites and for semiconductor and advanced manufacturing. So third, this bill, the Jobs Act, will address permitting delays by establishing clearer timelines and accountability, providing greater predictability without weakening environmental or public oversight. Lastly, the governor's prosperity roadmap complements this policy by pairing long-term economic strategy with near-term implementation-ready tools so Oregon can act now rather than continue losing jobs and investment. You will hear today from other panelists with more technical detail on the bill and relevant examples of why this is critical now. The Oregon Jobs Act is a win for Oregonians and our future economy. It provides modest growth opportunity that will yield significant revenue for our state. Thank you for your time and attention to this matter.
Very good. Thank you, Senator Sollman. Welcome.
Thank you. Hi, Chair Meek and Vice Chair Drazen and members of the committee. Thanks for hearing us out today. My name is Beach Pace, and I have the honor of serving as mayor of the city of Hillsborough. We are grateful for Senator Sollman for prioritizing our state's economy this session, and we can't afford to wait to act. You heard a little bit about that, but we are losing jobs in Washington County and statewide, which is hurting Oregonians now. As you've heard, the economic activity and expansion of this area is of statewide importance. Eco Northwest studied the potential statewide economic impact this land could have, and the results are staggering. The numbers blew me away too when I was reading them. Between $374 and $575 billion in growth. And I just want to say that's billion with a B in state GDP over 20 years. And there's between 27,000 and 37,000 operations jobs and between 5,000 and 16,000 construction jobs over 20 years. And this is the big one, between 6 and 12 billion in net state income taxes over 20 years. This area is also critical to supporting the existing ecosystems of companies in the Silicon Forest. It is not only an opportunity to recruit new jobs and investment, it's critical to retaining the jobs we still have and are supporting existing firms that want to expand in Oregon. Hillsborough started the planning for the infrastructure, land use, and economic assessments for this area through a multi-agency effort that occurred in 2008 with the Urban Reserves planning work and advanced concept planning for land in 2024 as part of Senate Bill 4 or the CHIPS Act assessment. This land has become significantly more development ready and served by industrial scale infrastructure based on the build out inside Hillsborough's remaining industrial lands over the past couple of years. Hillsborough has invested over $120 million in site readiness and infrastructure. The next step is to return this land to industrial use as it was originally planned and approved through a robust regional planning process. Only the legislature can make that decision, and sections 19 through 21 of the Legislative Concept 237 will provide an opportunity for that decision to be made. Thank you very much.
Very good. Thank you, Mayor Pace.
Yeah.
Any questions?
I see Keith on it.
Okay, and Mr. Levitt, please, you have the floor.
Great. Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Chair and Vice Chair Drazen and members of the committee. I'm Keith Levitt. I'm currently the founder of Confluence Strategies, which is a consulting firm that I stood up about a year ago. I've got 30 years of public sector in the economic development department, and most notably 25 years at the Port of Portland. I've been on the front lines of industrial land conversations, both as a developer of large industrial sites in the Portland metro region, as well as on the policy debate side, which is always very, very active in our state. Notably here, I've worked very closely with Senator Sollman and many others on the semiconductor task force. I led the industrial land subcommittee of that work. And I guess what I'd like to just impart on you is, we took a full statewide inventory of industrial land in 2023, and in all of the work that led to the task force recommendations and ultimately to Senate Bill 4 during the 23 session, we have a big problem with industrial land in our state, and it is without a doubt causing us to fall behind. The year over year, whenever we look at large 25 acre, 50 acre, all the way to 500 acres and above sites, we simply do not have those sites available for private investment. And something that Senator Sollman just said that has changed is that we're really in a battle with other states. And I've had the opportunity to work with other states, and I'm shocked at how industrial land is just baked in the cake. It's assumed. It is not an issue. In Oregon, it is an ongoing debate. It is not assumed. And so what happens is site selectors skip over your state. You don't even make it through the internet review of available sites. And I believe that's what happened to us during the run up to the CHIPS Act and Senate Bill 4. It was a little bit too little, too late. However, we made a lot of good progress in this particular site in question. And, this is 1,700 acres. It is absolutely prime to be brought into the urban growth boundary. It is the single most strategic site in the state of Oregon, without a doubt. What I'm hopeful is that this becomes step one in a few steps to put Oregon back on the map from an industrial land development standpoint. Every region in Oregon should identify their highly strategic site. That site should have access to new tools, whether it's the RSIS program that you see in this bill, or whether it is regulatory efficiency, land use, certainty. One of the biggest problems we have with land use, and that's why you're being asked to make this decision in legislation, is the uncertainty with litigation of our land use process. And that issue needs to be addressed as well. But I'm delighted that we're bringing this bold move forward. The economic impact, I would say, just look to Rondler Acres and the foresight that leaders had throughout the 80s and the 90s to bring that 500 acres into Hillsborough. And I think about what if we didn't have Rondler Acres and Intel was not able to make all of its D1X investments throughout the Great Recession in Oregon. Oregon really was held up by a lot of that work, and without the property, Intel would have gone to somewhere else, just as they ultimately did later on when they went over to Ohio on 1,000 acres. So this is critical property. You will fully vet this decision. It is an unnatural decision for Oregon to be making to bring 1,700 acres into the urban growth boundary. I have fully vetted this policy discussion, and I do believe you're going to find that it meets that scrutiny, and this decision is timely, and hopefully you can get it done this short session. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Levitt. And please stand by in case we have any questions you may answer when we conclude. That is the conclusion of panel one. I want to now call, unless there's any further comments you need to make.
I can be on hold, on
Thank you so
standby
much.
for.
Appreciate that. And then panel two, I'll call up Duke Shepard, and online is Lisa Bozinovic and Kelsey Haskett. And Kelsey is also online, I believe. Is she there? Yep. So I'll allow Duke to go first since you're here in person, and then we'll go next to Lisa after that.
Great. Thank you, Chair Meek, Vice Chair Drazen, members of the committee. My name is Duke Shepard. I am with Oregon Business and Industry. We are a statewide business association with 1,600 members across the state in every county. We are the state affiliate for the National Association of Manufacturers and the National Retail Federation. First, I want to thank Senator Sollman for inviting us to the table with local governments and other industry organizations to share ideas and concepts for this important statewide economic development bill. The two elements that I'm here to speak to today, though to be clear, we support strongly every single aspect of the bill, and they are all equally important, is permitting certainty and Oregon's advanced manufacturing competitiveness. On permitting certainty, I will point to Governor Ferguson in Washington almost exactly 1 year ago issued an executive order directing agencies to catalog permits, their deadlines, describe the steps in the approval process, to list the applications received, their processing times, their backlogs, and importantly, require that if permits are not issued on time, that the applicant gets their fees refunded. So we have worked since that was issued in Washington to get something similar on the books here in one way or another. And that's what we have in this LC draft. I believe the current LC provides a 60-day deadline to agencies for getting the cataloged information online. I think we're working on an amendment that would make that deadline 120 days. So just wanted to flag that. in terms of manufacturing, advanced manufacturing competitiveness, manufacturing jobs generally in Oregon pay better than all other jobs at every education level. So if you're a high school graduate only or less than a high school graduate and you get a job in manufacturing, the job you get in that sector is going to be better than any job you get in any sector on average. And that's all the way up the educational ladder. Unfortunately, we've been losing manufacturing jobs for 3 years, and we're at a lower manufacturing employment level than we have been since December 2013. Manufacturing is capital intensive. It takes machinery and equipment. Oregon recognizes this in policy already in a few different areas. The strategic investment program was built entirely around the outsized capital equipment costs in the semiconductor industry. This is a core element of the enterprise zone program. And Oregon has had an exemption for certain food processing equipment on the books since 2005 that was updated as recently as 2023. So as a policy matter, taxing capital equipment is repeatedly recognized as a competitive disadvantage in Oregon. What we're trying to do in this bill is reduce that disadvantage. It creates an optional tool for local governments to decide to not assess property taxes on new capital equipment in advanced manufacturing. This would allow for 5 years. So this would encourage companies to make investments here that they might not already want to make. It is, again, consistent with existing policies that Oregon has recognized already impact our competitiveness. In terms of what is advanced manufacturing, we are aligned with the federal definition in the National Strategic Plan for Advanced Manufacturing, and that has gone unchanged through multiple presidential administrations. I will just close out with saying I know of one large company, decent-sized company, in the tech sector that brought millions of dollars of equipment to Oregon. But the economy went in the tank a bit, so it was going to sit idle, but it was still going to be taxed. That equipment's now in Arizona. May or may not come back. And I hear from companies of all sizes, one recently as small as 50, others that are larger that have sites in multiple states. And they say repeatedly, it is hard to explain to the accountant why we should invest in Oregon. This bill gives them a reason, maybe, to invest in Oregon. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you so much. Okay. I hope it's Lisa. It might be Lisa. Welcome.
Thank you, Chair Meek, members of the committee. For the record, my name is Lisa Bozinovich, Executive Director of Oregon Life Sciences. And thank you for the opportunity to testify in support of LC 237. Like Mr. Shepard, we support the entire bill, but I'd like to talk about the need for a competitive research and development tax credit this morning. The bioscience and life sciences industry is a major engine of economic growth across the United States. And according to a national report prepared by the Biotechnology Innovation Organization, in partnership with the Council of State Bioscience Associations, the industry generates more than $3.2 trillion in total U.S. economic output and directly employs over 2.3 million people, supporting roughly 10 million jobs across the broader economy. The sector spans pharmaceuticals, medical devices, ag, biotech, and research and testing, and it delivers high-value, innovation-driven jobs in every region of the country. Importantly, the report also notes that the bioscience industry continued to grow even during the economic downturn from 2020 to 2022, reinforcing why states increasingly view life sciences as a stable, long-term economic development strategy. What matters most for Oregon is how states compete for this activity. The national analysis also shows that states seeing success are doing so through targeted policy measures, especially research and development tax credits, along with incentives for facilities, equipment, workforce development, permitting, those types of things. These tools are critical because life science companies operate on long, capital-intensive research timelines and often invest for years before generating revenue. R&D tax credits help reduce those early-stage barriers and directly influence where companies choose to locate research, scale manufacturing, and make long-term investments. Without a competitive credit, Oregon risks losing investments to the 39 other states that have one, and that are actively using these tools to attract and retain advanced manufacturing and life science companies. LC 237 aligns Oregon with the consensus strategies identified in this national analysis, and together with the bill's land, capital development, capital equipment, and permitting provisions, it sends a clear signal that Oregon intends to compete for and retain high-value innovation and manufacturing jobs. Thank you for your leadership on this bill, and I urge your support.
Thank you so much, and thank you for coming this morning. And welcome, Kelsey.
Good morning, Chair Meek, Vice Chair, and members of the committee. For the record, my name is Kelsey Haskett. I'm the Senior Director of Business Development with Economic Development for Central Oregon. We manage 5 Oregon enterprise zones for the Central Oregon region. I also serve as the president of the Oregon Economic Development Association, so I'm providing testimony today based on both my professional experience in Prineville as well as in representation of the OEDA Policy Committee. I'm here today to express strong support for this legislative concept, and I also want to thank Senator Sollman for her leadership in bringing forward a thoughtful and practical approach to strengthening Oregon's competitiveness. Across Oregon, economic developers are working every day to help communities grow quality jobs, diversify their economies, and remain competitive in an increasingly challenging national landscape. At its core, this work is about people, whether allowing families to stay in their own communities, allowing local businesses to reinvest and grow in their communities, or just allowing communities generally to have the resources that they need to support infrastructure, public services, and quality of life. This concept reflects a clear understanding of those realities and provides targeted updates to tools that are already in use across the state. The Enterprise Zone program is one of Oregon's most widely used and best understood economic development tools. It has a proven track record of supporting capital investment, job creation, and long-term tax-based growth. From advanced manufacturing and building products to food processing, clean tech, and bioscience, enterprise zones have helped level the playing field for Oregon by offsetting high upfront costs for companies in the form of equipment, buildings, infrastructure, often making the difference in whether a project locates, expands, or reinvests here. The enterprise zone provisions and the concept build on that success in a very practical way, extending the exemption period, refining the school support fee structure, and updating rural enterprise zone provisions better aligns the program with how modern projects are financed and scaled. These are large, capital-intensive investments with long timelines, and the current structure can limit Oregon's competitiveness versus other states mentioned in prior testimony. Implemented properly, expanding the enterprise zone tool is a simple, meaningful step forward in providing Oregon the ability to retain existing employers and recruit new investments, particularly as companies consider more business-friendly states. These changes do not reinvent the program, they just strengthen what is already working while preserving local control, accountability, and community partnership. We also appreciate the flexibility built into these updates, the optional school support fee. That approach recognizes that school districts and local jurisdictions have different fiscal realities while still supporting education and strong public-private collaboration. Growing the tax base through private investment is one of the most sustainable ways we can support schools and local services over a longer period of time. When we get economic development right, it shows up in classrooms, in paychecks, and in long-term health of the communities that are using them. OEDA appreciates Senator Sollman's leadership, and we look forward to working with the committee to refine this concept and ensure that the enterprise zone provisions deliver strong return on investment and real impact for communities across Oregon. Thank you for the opportunity to share our support today of LC 237.
And thank you very much. I appreciate that. And that concludes our panelists for this morning for LC 237. I do want to call up Senator Sollman, and you can still stay there, Mr. Shepard, if you like. We might have some questions. I wanted to just connect with the senator before she leaves. And welcome back. I don't know if you reintroduce yourself or not, but I wanted to just kind of reflect back on your work with industrial site readiness and industrial lands, all the way back to 2023 when you were the co-chair of the Senate Bill 4 committee, industrial or the technology committee, right, for the CHIPS Act. And maybe you can run us through a little bit about the research and work that was done regarding what lands were available when we did an inventory of industrial lands that could accommodate or be available for investment in the state of Oregon. You want to just touch on that a little bit?
Thank you, Chair Meek, and members of the committee. So on the process for the Senate Bill 4 and the Oregon CHIPS Act and being a co-chair with now Congresswoman Janelle Bynum, we took the work of a 2-year process. And Mr. Levitt could probably, is he still into? Yeah, I mean, on the industrial land part of it, there was a 2-year process for the semiconductor task force in full. And they broke out into different subgroups, and part of that was industrial site readiness and availability. And so that really was key. And so when I hear from people and talk about, well, really, we should set a table and talk about this, I'm really a little bit, I want to let folks know that the table has been set. We have had 2 years through that process. We've had the Oregon Clean Tech Task Force. I think the plan is out there of what we need. Now we just need to put that plan into play. And I think time is of the real concern because, as I mentioned, not just so much the global competitiveness now, it is national, it is state by state. And we depend so much on paying for those resources for our schools, public safety, housing, healthcare, all the things that we need to help Oregonians and to keep their life affordable. It depends on having people working, and it depends on a healthy economy. And that's really the purpose of pulling all these folks together and talking about, well, what does that look like? And that's why we came with the 3 parts. Knowing that we needed land that was build site ready, and knowing that we had to have the incentives be a part where we were looking to be competitive with other states. And then as Mr. Shepard mentioned, the regulatory reform, because businesses need certainty. So when they're planning, they need to have that, they need to know what they're looking at for their timeline. And so that is a long answer to the why all 3 parts of these, but I don't know if you needed further on the process for the land.
No, that was mainly, I think we have gone through these exercises and we are woefully short or don't have any available in any significant large size parcels that could be attractive. I was at the Business Summit in December and attended a breakout session where the site selector folks had come in and gave us a little bit of a briefing. And while Oregon may be attractive, we're almost immediately eliminated as a potential development because we don't have the land available or in the proper parcels. We are very friendly. The people would love to come to Oregon. We have, Intel, and we have, some of the infrastructure here. Obviously, hopefully, the trained workforce that could accommodate, we'd love to get more. But the issue was that we don't have the land available. And yes, Senator.
Mr. Chair, can I just also add that in the process of Senate Bill 4, we had a diverse group of committee members from across the state. And when we talked about this specific area, because this was brought up very specifically in that committee, we had some hesitation from some members that were from different parts of the state. And so we started doing some tours to kind of show folks about what it is, the ecosystem around Hillsborough. And so one of the tours that I participated in, because there were several, was with Senator Knopp and Representative Wallen, who represent very different areas of the state than I do. And we took them about, and it was after that tour, it was like a light bulb moment that I could almost see, is that they saw the ecosystem. And it isn't just about, I want to just really reiterate that folks like to demonize or say things about corporations, right? They understand that our corporation footprint in Oregon is very small, and that where we are broader is 90% of our business in Oregon is small. It's the small companies. Yesterday, I visited one in the Hillsborough area, 13 employees. They are looking to expand. They don't do direct business with Intel, the larger, but they do with some of their small supply chain. That's the ripple effect. That's what I'm talking about. And when we look at bills like this, that's what it's not. This isn't just a Hillsborough or Washington County. This is a statewide opportunity to have dollars invested back into our state for the things that I know Oregonians care about. And that's why we look very specifically to this land and this area, is because there was a 2-year study and they indicated this area is where those large plots of land needed to be. And so that's why we are where we are.
Thank you. Well, I'm glad we got that on the record and expounded on that. I have taken the reins of this committee with the forethought that Oregon has been forward thinking about how we want business to develop here in Oregon. And when we talked about when was the time to do this type of work, it was a couple of years ago. So I think it is very relative and now timely that we look forward to. We may not know who exactly may be the exact or perfect fit, but it's like the field of dreams. If we don't build it, if we don't make it available, we won't have the opportunity. So thank you so much. I'm going to open up for any questions or comments. Vice Chair Drazen, and then Senator Robinson. Yeah.
One comment and question.
Okay.
It seems to me we need to fix the problem with Oregon. I mean, you're focused on one site and trying to make things easier, make it possible to work there. But why don't we have the land? There's a beautiful climate. It's a wonderful place for people to live, and there's plenty of land. It's just the rules. We need to more broadly fix it. But I was curious on the 1,700-acre site. Is that how many different individuals or companies own it? Is there one large company that has a big hand in it, or is it a sort of a large area that a lot of different individuals? Because you're going to increase the value of the land substantially by making it possible to use it.
Chair Meek and Senator Robinson, thank you so much for the question. I will say I am certain that in that specific area, we could certainly bring up folks if you needed very specific. If my memory serves me right, it is about 80 different families in that area. And so and there is, when talking to those folks, I want to say that it is a compromised area to do farming. There is a lot of traffic. There is, it is in the North Hillsborough area where there is a lot of development. There has been, concerns about this area for some time, and we really looked at this bill to make sure that we had natural boundaries. So there are the natural boundaries of McKay Creek. So it's land that is east of that, and it's south of Highway 26. So there are natural boundaries within this area. There is existing property that is already within the city limits and already within the UGB, as mentioned by Mayor Pace. Hillsborough has invested over $120 million in this area for infrastructure already. And so this actually isn't like, we're not looking for, and I'm not in planning, so not one particular company to come, but that if you could break these into larger parcels where you may have a larger company and then some smaller supply chain, that may be the fact. But that is more of a planning part. And there's a definite public process for that through the city of Hillsborough when that land is able to come in. Definitely there is a public process for how and how many plots that does get.
That's very helpful.
Yeah, thank you.
That's exactly what I wanted to hear.
Thank you.
And I assume that they will still be able to continue farming if they decide they just want to farm.
If they want to farm, right. Nothing is, right.
Yes, Vice Chair Drazen, I was waiting.
Just want to make sure.
Yeah, please.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm excited to see this in front of us today, and also really grateful for the extensive work that's obviously gone on for a really long time. I just wanted to flag two issues. One of them is, of course, to to kind of echo what Senator Robinson is saying, I do think whenever we do fix-its around our land use system that are particular parcels with a particular intent, I think it does reflect that the system itself
Yes.
isn't able to be responsive and nimble enough when you have to come to the legislature to be able to be responsive to what the community needs are. You have to go around the system. I think that there's something that is a little broken in that. And so I keep saying that land use itself should have this larger conversation. I'm anxious to have that conversation, but also because of this issue and concern. This parcel, are the people that will be pulled into these boundaries, are they supportive of this?
So Chair Meek and Vice Chair Drazen, as far as I know, because this has been a constant part of our conversations when we were going back to Senate Bill 4, there has been overwhelming support for this area to be added to the UGB plus or added to our industrial site readiness. They have known this planning has been coming for some time, and again, I just want to reiterate the timeline of this. So since 2008, Metro did go through this process. 2008, it was actually the urban reserves were planned and approved through Metro. Then there was an appeal and a legal challenge, and then we know the pathway we took for a grand bargain. And I want to say that reiterate what Mayor Pace said. The only way for us to consider this land, I agree with you, Senator Drazen. I agree with you that we should be having a real comprehensive conversation about modernizing. Oregonians hold their values very dear and very near to their heart. That doesn't mean that we're going to compromise that. But everything that has gone on for some time needs to be modernized, including my knee. I'm 56, I'd get new parts. So we just need to make sure, like we're looking at the bottle bill, we've modernized it several times. We look at different programs, we've modernized those. We shouldn't be looking at that as a scary process. We should be looking at that as an innovative and wonderful process to move Oregon forward. So the only way for us to take action on this land, this specific area, is through legislation. Because that grand bargain was set, it locked that area into perpetuity to farmland. And so these families, they've known this process. They've been part of conversations with Senate Bill 4. It's time, and it's time. And as we talk about other economic development opportunities, you'll hear a lot of conversation about, well, we need X million, we need 50 million, we need 80 million to get this prepped and ready. Here's an opportunity where the city of Hillsborough has already invested over $120 million. So we're talking about where we could see potential action very, very quickly in a timeline versus having to wait for other areas to be shovel ready.
I want to make a quick comment and I'm done. Thank you for that. And I would just also like to just encourage us as we have these conversations about the future of our state and our economy, and this is an opportunity for a sector and a region to be strengthened that is at a moment that needs it. But I would also say that the rest of the state, they also have assets and economic engines locally that are not coming to the fore in our conversations inside this legislative process. And as we are intentional and strategic about this sector where we now want to compete with Arizona and the rest of the nation on where people can choose to locate, we also need to recognize that other parts of our state haven't just fallen behind, they've been left behind. And we need to have conversations about what their goals are and what their strategic vision is. And it can't be driven by Portland. It can't be driven by an urban mindset. It has to recognize that our whole state should have the opportunity to thrive. Yeah. And too often we pass legislation that identifies a need to revitalize something in Portland and revitalize something in sort of West Washington County. And I appreciate that. We need to do those things. Mm-hmm. But while, Representative Wallen was willing to come and tour, and so was Senator Knopp, let's figure this out for other sectors and other parts of our state that are saying we need regulatory relief. We need incentives that are responsive to our industries. We want to grow here. We don't want to move to other states. I have the same kinds of conversations you do with businesses all the time that say, I want to grow. I can't grow here. My accountant Duke says that it doesn't make sense, it doesn't pencil. And so we're looking at other places because nothing else allows for our company to continue to grow and provide our services. So I am happy that this is here, and I just want to put down, as the good representative would say, a marker, to be able to just say, this can't be a single conversation. This has got to be a much larger conversation.
Agreed. And not sure if you're going to mention our efforts with Coos Bay and Coos County, but we are looking at other states, and I'm glad we're taking up these efforts. But I agree, and we got to look at further. But yes.
Chair Meek and Vice Chair Drazen, I completely hear you. And while we mentioned the three different parts of this bill, the first part, look at that. And it is land, and it is in North Hillsborough because it can support that ecosystem. The other parts of these bills, actually, we really made sure that that could be an effective tool for Eastern Oregon, for Central Oregon. We knew that when businesses are looking, they need that regulatory, they need to see that timeline so that they know what they can count on and plan on. So we wanted to make sure that the other tools that were put in place weren't going to be something that was going to be very specific to Hillsborough and Washington County. Those tools will be available to people across the state. And I understand, because I've had this conversation with people, feel like this is a Hillsborough action. The land is specific, but it can only be changed through legislative process. But the other tools will be utilized. So, but thank you for that.
Very good. Very good. Yes, Senator Pham.
Thank you, Chair Meek. I just wanted to add my voice to this conversation. I look forward to a robust discussion when we hear it in session. I think also agriculture is also foundational to our economy as well. And in response to comments, I don't think Hillsborough farmers are monolithic. And so what I've seen in the record is, some are wanting to sell and some are concerned about us decreasing the amount of fertile farmland that they say once we get rid of, we can't, once we pave over, we can't get back some of the most fertile agricultural soils in the world, really. So I just, I'm hearing, I think my defensiveness a little bit, even though I acknowledge there probably is room for some reform and modernization, but I also think that what makes this state so beautiful, with so much beautiful natural landscapes, is that we have a really strong land use system that has protected farmland from sprawl, so we don't look like Texas or California. So I look forward to conversations and just want to make sure I'm putting it out there that when we think about economic development, agriculture is also a foundational part of that healthy economy.
Very good. Yes, Senator.
Chair Meek and Senator Pham, I absolutely. I come from a very a rural area as well. I representing a lot of farmland, and I will tell you that, as a state, I believe it is somewhere around 1% that we actually occupy. There is so much of our area that we do not necessarily occupy with housing and industry and such. There is room for growth here, and I say modestly is incredibly important because that is the Oregon way. And while I understand our need to protect and have good farmland, we have to understand there's another component to that, and that is, how do we support in this state and how do we stand up for family farms? Because we need to make sure that the work that they do, not only is such an incredible service to Oregonians, but also the bottom line for them. If they can't pencil out what they're doing, we make it more and more difficult for them to have that food for us. The other thing that I was very specific on for this fix in this bill was keeping south of Highway 26. When you go north of Highway 26, you go into Helvetia area, and which I represent, and that area does have tree farms and again hazelnut farms. You can't just one farming season do wheat and then take it down and do hazelnut, and the next week Hazelnut needs years. And as you know, we are growing as a hazelnut capital of the United States. Yamhill is very, very strong. So I think that there's room for both, and we really do have to move ourselves away from this, not this because of this, because that kind of takes us out of our modernization type of conversation. And I think that we really do need to make sure that if we're talking about having family, having agriculture, what are we doing to support agriculture truly in this state? So with the policies and everything that we pass.
Thank you, thank you. We're pushing up on our schedule, our calendar
I'm very passionate about
timeline.
it, sorry.
No, perfect. Thank you. And thank you for the great conversation. I'm putting in a plug. We'd love to have LC 237 brought to Commerce and General Government Committee, just out there in the biosphere, yeah. And so I'm going to be closing the informational meeting on LC